What would you do if a saint predicted a death within your group? Join us for the final part of St. John Bosco's 1862 outing, where a prophecy unfolds in a way that leaves everyone in awe. The Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco, a project of America Needs Fatima. I'm your host, Adrian Fonseca. Subscribe for new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Howdy, and welcome back to the final part of our three-part episode of the Miracles and Prophecies of St. John Bosco. My name is Adrian Fonseca, and in this final part of our story, we follow St. John Bosco and his boys as they witness a prophecy and encounter moments of profound spiritual insight. Reflect on this during the video. How would you respond if you knew a profound change was about to happen in your life? And before we dive in, please consider supporting our mission. Becoming a member not only helps us to continue this work, but it also grants you access to very special perks that I'll tell you about later in this video. So click the link in the comment section or in the description box down below to become a monthly promoter today. That same evening, during Don Bosco's stay at Vignale, a more memorable event occurred. A number of boys, among them Joseph Buzzetti and the student Modesto De Vico, were standing around Don Bosco when he suddenly became pensive, and after a few moments said, "Let us kneel, and say an Ave and De Profundis for a companion of yours who shall die tonight." In utter amazement, the boys knelt to pray. Then as they stood up, De Vico said to Don Bosco, "This is strange. You bring us on an outing and then tell us that someone has to die?" De Vico must be scared, Don Bosco remarked. He is afraid that he is the one. "I'm not afraid," rejoined De Vico. "Don't worry," Don Bosco went on. "It's none of you. The boy who will die is at the Oratory, feeling fine and merrily playing with his companions. He has no idea that he shall stand at God's judgment seat before dawn." In 1888, Jerome Sautel gave us this written report. After supper on October 12, 1862, he went to the chapel with our host for night prayers. Then Don Bosco, who had been kneeling on the altar step, arose and facing us said loudly and clearly, "Let us pray for one of our boys who is now very sick at the Oratory." The next day, we heard the stunning news. Don Bosco had told us to pray for our dying schoolmate at 10 o'clock the night before. Of course, no mail was delivered during the night, nor was there a telegraph office at Vignale. Yet the following day at 5, when we were in the chapel for morning prayers, Don Bosco, before vesting for Mass, turned to face us, as he had done the night before, and said to us, "Let us say a De Profundis for the soul of the boy who died last night at the Oratory." The following Tuesday, a letter came from Father Alessonati, announcing the death had occurred as Don Bosco had foretold. I can vouch for the truth of this statement. The incident made such a deep impression on me that I never forgot it. Bishop Cagliero and the others who were on this same outing with us recall it too, and will corroborate my words. The Oratory necrology had this entry. October 12, 1862. Rosario Papalaro of Guerre Catania died suddenly. Joseph Sandrone, a schoolmate who heard Don Bosco's predictions and testified to its truth, described the youngster as rather short, plump, rosy-cheeked 10-year-old who wore a gunner's uniform. He had gone to bed apparently healthy and very much alive, but the following day he was found dead in bed. On October 13th, the boys were allowed to see Vignale in small groups after dinner. The next day, Don Bosco took them all to Casorso, where they had been invited by Father Felix Bova, its very zealous pastor. He welcomed them with complete warmth and generosity. The boys' vocal and instrumental music and stage presentations entertained the entire village. Here, Don Bosco had an occasion to show his zeal, not only for the spiritual welfare of his boys and the faithful in general, but also for that of priest. As he was about to leave, a priest, the son of a wealthy family, handsomely dressed like a man of the world and sporting fancy footwear, tie, and gold pin, approached him. He began to compliment Don Bosco on the excellent conduct of his many boys, and then launched into a lengthy praise of Don Bosco's training. Don Bosco let him finish, never glancing at his face or giving a sign of attention. When the priest was through, Don Bosco, as though he had just noticed him, asked, "Who are you? And where do you come from?" "I am from Asti," he replied. "I heard that you were passing through the village, and I wanted to see you and introduce myself." "What?" exclaimed Don Bosco. "You dare to come all the way from Asti, dressed like that?" "Certainly! I've dressed this way for a long time, and nobody's ever said anything." "Do you mean to say that the vicar capitular of Asti never called you to task?" And quite heatedly, he pointed out to the priest the harm that he was doing by such conduct. Their conversation was rather lengthy, but after excuses and apologies, the priest finally capitulated to Don Bosco's admonition. The following day, he returned in clerical garb and assured Don Bosco that from then on he would follow his wholesome suggestions. Meanwhile, thinking of his return trip, Don Bosco sent the cleric John Baptiste Anfosi to Commander Bona, Director General of the Railroads, to request a free passage on 2 third-class coaches. The cleric was well received and was told to return the next day for an answer. It was contained in a letter testifying to Don Bosco's most valuable contributions to society, and the government in directing all station masters to assign him 2 coaches for any destination at no charge. The same favor was granted in 1863 and 1864. With this matter settled, Don Bosco left Vignale, where his friendly and inspiring conversations had won him everyone's heart. Count and Countess Calori rank among the most generous and steady Salesian benefactors. The Countess, for instance, promised Don Bosco a handsome contribution for the construction of the Mirabello school, and then she increased the sum. She was a mother to him, and he often sought her advice. Generally, they were of one mind, as she perfectly understood Don Bosco's spirit and objectives. When he decided to build the Church of Mary, Help of Christians, he mentioned it to her without hinting at its title. "To whom shall we dedicate this church?" he asked. "To Mary, Help of Christians," she replied instantly. Likewise, it was she who later suggested that Don Bosco's new church in Corsa del Rey be named after St. John the Evangelist, precisely as Don Bosco had planned to do. And while the latter aimed at thus honoring Pius IX, the Countess intended to perpetuate Don Bosco's name. Late Tuesday morning, October 14th, 1862, Don Bosco and his boys left Vignale with 1,000 gold lire for travel expenses, a gift from the Countess. At Camagna, they were offered refreshments by Father Peter Varvele, the pastor. They reached Mirabello, where they spent the night as guests of the Provera family. Mr. Provera already had plans drawn up for the new school, and he had stocked a good amount of construction materials, and Don Bosco conferred with him. They decided to speed up the work and to have the school ready by the following fall. On Wednesday, October 15th, the boys walked the long distance between Mirabello and Alessandria, with a single stop at Castelletto Scasoso, where they were treated to refreshments by the local pastor. They reached Alessandria late that night and silently walked to the seminary, where the rector, Father Peter Parnisiti, joyfully welcomed Don Bosco and turned the building over to him. Each boy had a bed here because the seminarians were still on vacation. On Thursday, October 16th, after Mass, in the beautiful seminary chapel, the boys went sightseeing while Don Bosco made courtesy calls on the vicar capitular, Canon Philip Ansaldi, and other prominent priests and laymen. On Friday morning, October 17th, they got permission from General Count Radicati to visit the imposing citadel. That afternoon, they walked to the battlefield of Marengo, a scene of the Napoleon's infamous victory over Austria on June 17, 1800. They also visited the local museum housing his carriage, a number of weapons, and other mementos of that historic event, which Don Bosco had previously described in detail to them. That evening, they staged a play for a large audience, and on Saturday morning, October 18th, Don Bosco took them to the cathedral to say goodbye to the Madonna della Salva. Then, after dinner, they marched behind the band to the railroad station. Father Lawrence Grassi, the pastor of St. Peter's, led them brandishing a baton like a drum major. He had invited Don Bosco to Alexandria, met the group on arrival, and obtained permission for the band to march and play. Don Bosco caught up with his boys at the station. He was accompanied by many priests, including his friends and benefactors. Canon Victor Bolla and Canon Charles Bragone. He immediately went to pay his respect to the station master. When the train arrived, the boys got on and shouted their goodbyes to Alessandria. The happy brigade filed through the Oratory gate towards evening amid blaring trumpets. The house was full of pupils, old and new. After greeting Don Bosco, they mobbed their newly arrived schoolmates, helping them with their belongings and bombarding them with questions. And this went on for weeks. As he was having supper, Don Bosco was informed of the illness of Peter, the young man who, as we have already seen, you might remember him from part 1 of this 3-part episode, had not been allowed to take part in the outing. That evening, he visited him. He came immediately, the youth wrote. He cheered me up, heard my confession, gave me his blessing, and never again mentioned my misconduct. I was ill for several months, partly because of my grief of having offended Don Bosco, but I finally recovered. The story of St. John Bosco's prophecy and its fulfillment highlights the mysterious ways in which divine intervention can manifest. It's a powerful reminder of the importance of faith and trust in God's plan. If you feel inspired by this story and others like it and want to help us share more, consider becoming a monthly promoter of St. John Bosco. Your support at any level makes a tremendous difference. Each contribution helps us to reach more people with the message of St. John Bosco's miracles and prophecies. You'll receive various tokens of our appreciation whenever you sign up, including Mass Remembrance certificates, the pictures of St. John Bosco and Mary Help of Christians, and free books when you become a monthly promoter of the miracles and prophecies of St. John Bosco. To become a member, click the link in the description box down below or in the comment section, and your generosity is greatly appreciated and helps us to continue our mission. Thank you for joining us in this final part of St. John Bosco's 1862 yearly outing. We saw how his prophetic visions and powerful faith guided his boys through profound experiences. These stories remind us of the extraordinary ways that God can work through his saints. Now, I'm curious as to what stood out to you. What lesson did you take from the video? I'd be very curious, so leave a comment in the comment section down below and let me know what you think. I'm sure others will be interested as well. We hope you enjoyed this 3-part episode. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories and miracles from the life of St. John Bosco. On our next episode, we have a story of how the civil authorities came to harass St. John Bosco's school. You won't want to miss that. Until next time, St. John Bosco, pray for us. God bless you, and may Mary Immaculate keep you under her mantle. God love you.